Hey guys, it's Dawn from Creative Appliques. Welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for being here today. If you're a subscriber, welcome back. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing and hit the bell so you're notified when I upload new content. This is part 2 where we're going to talk about how to sew the pocket. If you missed the discussion all about placement and where to place the pocket, please look for the link below for part 1 where we discuss all about the proper placement of the pocket. In this video, we're going to go through the steps on how to stitch the pocket on. Okay, so for this demo, what we're going to do is we're doing the apple, and so we'll need 3 pieces of fabric. I've chosen the pink for the apple since I'm doing, excuse me, a girl's shirt. I am going to use the green for the leaf, and then this is for the pocket. So one of the things about the pocket, as I mentioned earlier, is it's going to be a usable pocket, which means you can put things inside of it. So for the fabric, all the dimensions are going to be listed in a printable PDF that will come with it, with the step-by-step instructions for each pocket design that there is. So there's going to be the written instructions, and then there's going to be the stitch order chart, which has the stitch steps that go in the order that the design will stitch. But there's also the measurement guide that's in the instructions as well. So for the pocket, you will need double the height, okay? So this pocket is 3.5 inches wide, but we need it double because what we're going to do is we're going to take and cut some heat and bond light or some kind of adhesive, so iron-on adhesive. So this is a 3.5 inch wide pocket. So for me, I cut 4.5 inches wide by 7.5 inches high. Now I'm going to take it and I'm going to fold it in half. And this is the amount of heat and bond light I'm going to need. So it's folded in half height-wise. Okay, so this is going to be the actual pocket right there. But I only need half of the heat and bond light. So I'm going to cut this. Okay, so now we're going to prep the pieces of fabric. So this is on the wrong side of the fabric. You will press on the heat and bond light. So shiny side closest to the on top of the wrong side of the fabric. Paper up. Okay, this is the pocket, wrong side up. Shiny side down, paper up. Now once you've ironed it, let it cool for a second. So now these are cool, so we just simply tear off the paper. And now you see you have a shiny side. This is the glue that attaches the applique to the item you're sewing on. So with this, it is going to, now we're going to fold it in half. And we're going to press this one, the pocket. We are not going to iron these right now. These get ironed onto the shirt later after we've sewn them. So what this is going to do is it's going to make a much stabler, sturdier pocket because you'll have 2 pieces of fabric and the fact that in the design, the pocket only stitches on 3 sides. It does not stitch on the top side, which that is where the fold is. And you don't want to have that as a raw piece of fabric because then it's going to fray. But now that we have the fabric folded in half and glued together, it's going to make a nice sturdy, stable pocket, and it's also going to be a double layer, and it's not going to fray. So now that we've prepped our fabrics, we are going to take the shirt and do the placement where we feel is going to be the correct spot for the pocket. So an easy way to do this, as we've talked about, is place it where you feel visually it looks like it's the correct spot. And now take a straight pin and go straight through the center of the design. And take your marker. This is called Mark Begone. I don't know if you can see Mark Begone. It is a water-soluble, stable pen, which if it was something that needed to be marked and needed to be erased, you can simply get a wet paper towel and dab it to get the marking off. But because the pocket's going to cover this, it's not going to matter. But anyway, so we have marked the center of where we want the pocket to be. Now another thing you can do too, so to make sure that you have it's going to be straight where you want it to be, we'll put the pin back in it and back to the center of that, and you can mark the lines, the ends of the lines as well, so then this way when you get it in your hoop, those spots there can line up to the markings of your hoop so that you know you have it centered correctly. So now you're going to hoop your item. And then we're going to load the design onto the machine. So I've turned my shirt inside out. I like to use a fusible mesh that I cut to the shape, the size that I need, and then I press it onto the inside of the shirt. I've always loved fusible mesh because it goes onto the shirt, and therefore once it's ironed on there, it will prevent the shirt from shifting, pulling, stretching, and moving. And then I also hoop medium tearaway stabilizer, but this mesh is cutaway, and that is ironed onto the back of the shirt, and then the tearaway is hooped. Okay, so now I'm using a fast frame because I love fast frames, and they're just my happy spot. So I took the fast frame and I taped with masking tape the stabilizer onto it. I don't like sticky stabilizer. It leaves a residue on the item I'm sewing on. I am not comfortable with it on the machine, gunking up the machine, so I stay away from sticky stabilizer as much as possible. So I took my spray adhesive and I sprayed it really, really well. And this stabilizer is Pellon. It's a very good quality stabilizer. So with this stabilizer, all the items I talk about, I will leave a link in the comments section with all of the products that I use that will link you to an Amazon shop, and there you can see all the products I use. So anyway, this is a fast frame. I'm sticking it inside. I have my markings here, and I can see through the shirt to where the center is. So I put the pin in the center of the dot there, and I can put the pin in the center of the dot there, and then just lower it down. And then line up the dots with these spots. Okay? And this and then I pin the shirt. So it has inside, okay, it has the fusible poly mesh glued on or ironed on to the back of the shirt, hooped a medium tearaway stabilizer, and now I'm pinning the shirt down. And I will also clamp it down too. In a minute I'll show you. I use these. But I like to pin it around as well. And this is a big enough hoop. This is the 8x8 hoop that is much larger than the design I'm sewing. The design I'm sewing is 5.2 by 3.5, 3.5 wide by 5.2 high, so there's not going to be any risk of hitting the hoop. Okay. So medium tearaway stabilizer, poly mesh fusible on the back, spray adhesive, and now we're ready to sew. So I just wanted to show you the clips too of how I have that clipped on there. So I loaded the hoop to the machine, and I also have the design loaded with the steps to sew the design. So the first parts that are going to sew is any of the decorative parts that are above the pocket. Whatever it is that is above the pocket, that is going to stitch first. Today, since we're doing the apple, the first part is going to be the apple, the second part is going to be the leaf, and then the decorative outline, the satin stitching is going to sew on those parts, and then the pocket is going to sew last. For the majority of the pockets is going to be that way, with a few exceptions here and there. There may be a spot that needs to sew after the pocket. But with all my regular appliques, the way they normally sew is all of the fabric pieces are put down, and then all the decorative and satin stitching is saved for the end. So you lay all the fabric down and then cut it. The pocket design is a little bit different because I will explain that when we get to that spot. So let's start stitching the first pieces of applique. So we stitched the outline for the apple, and now I'm going to place the fabric down and stitch that down, and then I will trim around that. Okay, I just trimmed close to the stitching there. So now I will sew on the leaf. So now the two parts of the apple have been attached. We'll sew the decorative stitching. Okay, so now that the decorative parts have stitched, we're going to sew on the pocket. So the first thing that's going to stitch is the placement for the pocket. Okay, so one of the things I want to show you so I'm zooming in here. This is the stitching for the top of the pocket. It comes up even with the satin stitching for the apple above it. The reason being is that when you place down the pocket, it's going to cover that part. So we're going to take the fold. Remember, we have the fold. We folded it in half. We're going to take the fold and we're going to place it even with that point. So it's going to be sitting above the satin stitching. I hope that makes sense. So it's not going to be below the satin stitching, so you're not going to see part of the shirt showing through. You're not going to see the satin stitching. It's going to be sitting above it. The pocket, the fold of the pocket is going to be sitting above or higher than the satin stitching. And now I'm going to tape it in place. So just take a few pieces of tape and tape the edge of it out of the way, making sure that the top of the fold is up here. The raw edges are the other three parts. So now I'm going to cut close to the stitching of the pocket. Remember, I'm not going to cut up here because this is the fold. We don't want to cut that part. We're just cutting the parts that are on the side. Because essentially the pocket is an applique too. Also, as well. Remember, this feels a little bit, it's going to feel thicker because you have not only the double layers of fabric, but you also have heat and bond light in there, and that way, you know, it gives that sturdiness, so it's going to feel thicker when you're cutting it. All right, so now the last step for this design is going to be the satin stitching for the pocket. So there you have it. There's our cute little pocket, right, that we sewed. We've discussed placement and how to stitch it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up so I know you like my content and I'll continue making more. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing and also hit the bell to be notified when I upload new content. Thanks so much for joining me today, and remember, make your life creative.